This is The Big Breakdown, a long look back at some of the biggest stories we're covering for you at the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
You ever notice how the louder someone insists they didn't get a fair shot, the less believable they sound? That's the air Charlie Adelson is breathing right now. The stale oxygen of privilege and deflection. A man convicted of orchestrating the murder of Florida state law professor Dan Markel isn't fighting for innocence. He's fighting for a redo. His lawyers say Tallahassee was too biased, too loud, too poisoned by headlines to ever give him a fair shot. But the state of Florida, they're done listening. On the same night, his mother, Donna Adelson, was convicted of the same crimes. The Attorney General's office quietly dropped a 57-page response just before midnight. Symbolic, surgical. And it may seal the final chapter of this family's legal saga. Let's rewind in case you're just kind of catching up. Maybe you didn't even know about Charlie. Maybe you just caught up when you started hearing about Donna. Well, there's a whole other chapter or two or three before the Donna one. In 2014, Dan Markel, a 41-year-old law professor, was shot in his own driveway. The motive? A custody battle gone nuclear. His ex-wife, Wendy Adelson, wanted to move their sons to South Florida, and a judge said no. And that no became a vendetta. Over years, investigators uncovered the pieces. 2 hitmen, 1 go-between, and payments that traced straight back to the Adelson orbit. Charlie was the smooth-talking Miami dentist. He ended up at the center. He was convicted in 2023 and got life in prison. His mother followed 2 years later. Same verdict, same sentence. Now, Charlie's in a South Dakota cell trying to claw his way back through the appellate system. And here's where things stand. His appeal sits with Florida's First District Court of Appeal. His legal team filed it in May of 25, claiming his trial was unfair. The state filed its reply in early September, and within hours of Donna's conviction. Let's just finish up all of our paperwork here while we're at it, right? Charlie's central claim: he couldn't get a fair trial in Tallahassee because the jury pool was tainted by media coverage. But when the judge asked him directly at the end of the selection, "Do you accept this jury?" Charlie Adelson, "Yes, Your Honor." That one word, yes, may sink the entire appeal, because under Florida law, if you don't renew a venue motion after the jury's picked, you waive it. You can't complain about the crowd after you've taken the field. So the state's first line of defense was simple: you waived it. They also noted his motion was never filed properly. Where's his attorneys from? Was this another one from another crematory down the road? No affidavits, no certificate, just an off-the-cuff oral request by a New York jury consultant who thought Tallahassee was too small. Judge Stephen Everett denied it, gave the defense a chance to renew later, and they didn't. Game over on that issue. The state went further, arguing the media coverage wasn't inflammatory, it was mainstream. CNN, ABC, Fox, WCTV, Tallahassee Democrat. Hardly a smear campaign. Translation: you can't call it bias when it's just people reporting what you did. Charlie's team also claims the court wrongly excluded hundreds of normal text messages with his then-girlfriend, Catherine McBonna. Messages, they say, showed an everyday relationship, not a criminal conspiracy. But the state points out those texts were from June of 2014, not July, the month of the murder, and the defense never properly introduced them at trial. No proffer, no record, no review. End of argument. The defense adds that the court excluded statements about how extortion works that would have helped their theory. The state's answer: hearsay, irrelevant, and again, never preserved. And by the time they close with cumulative error, the appeal reads less like legal argument and more like grasping at air. It's impossible to miss the timing. The state dropped its filing the same day Donna Adelson heard You're guilty. Hours apart, one family, two verdicts, two appeals. And the prosecution's message here, you can file all the paperwork you want. The evidence is not going anywhere. Donna will likely echo the same complaints in her own appeal, but she, too, accepted her jury. When asked if she approved of the panel, she looked at her lawyer, shrugged, and said, yes. Just like that. I don't know. I'm just, I'm assuming. Same word, different courtroom, same outcome, waiting. Right now, Charlie's lawyers have until November 5th to file a reply. After that, the appellate judges decide whether to hold oral arguments or just rule on the briefs. And if they affirm the case is closed, if they reverse, that's a long shot. Not saying it couldn't happen. Stranger things have. It could be a new trial. But the law and the record both favor affirmation. So if you're a betting person, you know where your odds are. The court already cited precedent from the Gary Michael Hilton case, same district, same rule, failed to renew a venue motion, and you've abandoned it. That's exactly what the state is relying on here. For people outside the courtroom bubble, appeals sound like a chance at freedom. They're not. They're audits. No new witnesses, no fresh evidence, just judges flipping through transcripts asking, did the trial follow the rules? And unless the answer is a clear no, the conviction stands. So when Charlie's attorneys re-argue the same fairness points, they're not moving the needle, because in appellate law, procedure is everything. But beneath the legal briefs, there's a deeper story about power, image, and denial. The Adelsons spent years trying to choreograph outcomes. First with money, then with manipulation, now through litigation. Wendy tried to rebrand herself as a misunderstood ex-wife. Donna nearly escaped to Vietnam before deputies stopped her at the airport. And Charlie, he's still playing chess from a prison cell, pretending the board isn't already cleared. The appeal isn't about justice, it's about control. A last-ditch attempt to steer the narrative they can't actually rewrite. And here's the irony. The same family that weaponized the media is now blaming it. Charlie says he couldn't get a fair trial because too many people had heard his name. But why had they heard it? Because he helped engineer a murder so deliberate it captivated the county. He's not a victim of publicity. He's the reason for it. Psychologically, it tracks. When narcissists lose control, because let's not forget, all roads lead to narcissism in true crime. When narcissists lose control, they rewrite the story. The appeal becomes a stage to prove the system is not the problem, but the record, the audio, the phone logs, the bank withdrawals. It all tells the truth no script can spin. The jury in Tallahassee wasn't angry. It was attentive. The coverage wasn't gossip, it was reporting. And Judge Everett ran a methodical, by-the-book trial. He really did. And we've seen a lot of judges where you could make arguments other ways. This isn't that. This isn't persecution. It's called process. And just because you don't like the process, because what you did looks really, really icky to most human beings, doesn't mean you get a redo. I know in the world of Charlie, that's probably shocking because God knows what he was conditioned with as Donna Adelson as his mother and Harvey as dad. I'm guessing there was a lot of, well, you can do whatever you want, Charlie. Are you mad? Oh, poor Charlie. Let's give him another chance. Let's give him the participation trophy. That's how you end up being a shitty dentist and you end up calling your practice an institute. Make it sound great on paper, even though we're a clusterfuck. Statistically, Charlie's odds are microscopic. Florida appellate courts rarely overturn first-degree murder convictions unless they're blatant misconduct or new evidence. Neither applies here. What this appeal really does is telegraph strategy for Donna's next move. The same venue argument, the same media complaint, the same uphill climb, but both mother and son already locked themselves in when they told the judge yes. You can't call the game rigged after you shake the ref's hand. What makes the story powerful isn't just legal precedent, it's what it says about consequence. The Adelsons lived by control, and they lost it, and now they're flailing. And every motion they file now is another attempt to reclaim it. But appeals aren't therapy, and the courts don't rewrite history for comfort. Charlie Adelson wasn't undone by bias. He was undone by evidence, and by his own arrogance. So where does it end? Well, he sits in that prison, waiting for appellate judges who already have everything they need. His attorneys will file one more brief in the First District Court of Appeal. It'll issue its ruling. If the past is prologue, the word will be simple: affirmed. Because in Florida, justice may crawl, but it doesn't stop. And when it finally catches up, even the loudest appeals can't drown it out. It isn't about venue. It's about accountability. And the clock on that already ran out. What do you think? Should Charlie get a second chance? I mean, look at him. Oh, he looks like he didn't get his cookie at snack time. Oh, let's give him an extra one, right? Or lock him in the box. Lock him in the box to rot away and keep him away from the rest of society. Narcissists are dangerous people. They are dangerous, dangerous human beings. Not really fit to be out with the rest of the world. And when you finally catch one and put it in the box, you keep it there. Just like Mom, just like Charlie. And who knows? There's plenty of boxes to put more Adelsons in. Stay tuned. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. You will find us there. Do that same search wherever you get podcasts, and you will find us as well. And take us along wherever you go. Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. We do greatly appreciate when you hit that subscribe button, so please do. Until next time, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast. This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
Before the mugshots, before the headlines scream matriarch of murder for hire, there was just Donna Adelson. A woman who, for most of her life, appeared to have it all under control, if that's the way you'd like to look at it. That word control is the gravitational center of her story, though. But control isn't something that shows up fully formed in adulthood. It's learned, molded, practiced, reinforced, and sometimes it becomes religion. So let's strip away the courtroom drama and step back into the world that built Donna Adelson. The post-war promise of order, the generational gospel of achievement, and the quiet undercurrent of fear that defined mid-century American families. What made Donna, Donna? Now, we are going to take some liberties here. We're going to make some assumptions, make some generalities. We're trying to understand what is behind the genesis of this control. And to do that, we have to go back in time and take a look at the world in which Donna grew up in. Donna was born around 1950, growing up in or near New York City. The child of a country obsessed with stability at that moment in time. White picket fences, perfect families, suburban lawns trimmed to regulation length. She'd go on to attend Queens College, part of the City University of New York system, a solid middle-class step towards professional respectability. She trained as a teacher, a role that, in the mid-century imagination, carried moral authority and social graces. The educator, the nurturer, the one who shaped young minds and kept chaos in line with a smile and a lesson plan. In the 1970s, she married Dr. Harvey Adelson, a dentist who built a successful cosmetic practice in South Florida. Together, they formed what looked like a model American dream. 3 children, a thriving business, and the kind of Palm Beach sheen that whispers, "We made it, Harvey. We made it, didn't we? We can do anything we want." That facade held on for decades. And then, like so many of them, it shattered. But before we get to the shattering, let's look at the scaffolding of this. What kind of world produced a woman who seemed to believe that control wasn't just necessary, it was survival, it was instinct, it's all she knows. The 1950s factory of obedience is where that takes us. To understand Donna Adelson, you have to understand the machine that made women like her. In the 1950s and 60s, they were built on the kind of psychological assembly line. The ideal woman was composed of obedience, polish, and performance. She wasn't supposed to question. She was supposed to achieve. She wasn't supposed to feel too much. She was supposed to present perfection. Children were raised under the watchful eye of parents who'd survived war and depression. They didn't want chaos. They wanted guarantees, rules, schedules, certainty. They'd already seen enough of the chaos. The sociologists later called it authoritarian parenting, high control, low warmth. Psychologist Diana Brumrind defined it in 1966. Parents who demand unquestioning obedience, who measured worth by compliance, because I said so, wasn't just a phrase, it was the moral framework. In post-war New York, that mindset thrived. Families migrated upward, often Jewish and first or second generation Americans were desperate to maintain the progress they'd crawled out of poverty to achieve. Discipline was love, achievement was security, and failure was not an option. It was a threat to the entire family's standing. And that's the air Donna Adelson would have breathed. This is not an excuse for Donna. This is the recipe for Donna. Imagine a child absorbing those messages. The world rewards order. Authority is safety. To lose control is to invite shame. Now, fast forward 20 years. That child grows up. She marries a man who runs a business. She joins him in it. She manages a home, 3 children, and a family image polished to mirror shine. Every variable is accounted for, every schedule mastered, every child expected to perform. But control has a price. It doesn't leave room for failure or for autonomy. That's where things start to bend. Because the paradox of control is this: the more you grasp at it, the more brittle everything becomes. A person who lives by control can't tolerate uncertainty. They'll bend the world before they will bend themselves. So when life delivers chaos, when a son's marriage falls apart, when reputation is threatened, when the family's image starts to crack, the instinct isn't reflection, it's containment. Seal the leak, fix the narrative, make it right at any cost. Even if right means criminal. Authoritarian family systems don't teach emotional agility. They teach performance under pressure. They breed people who measure love in compliance and loyalty in silence. That doesn't make Donna a victim. It makes her a case study in what happens when control metastasizes. In families like these, control isn't about power for power's sake. It's about fear. Fear of failure, fear of humiliation, fear of losing the narrative. And fear, when it's dressed up as perfection, becomes the most dangerous emotion in the room because it looks like calm. It sounds reasonable. It's strategic, polite, maternal, until it's not. Control-based personalities often justify extreme behavior as responsibility. They'll say, "I'm just doing what needs to be done." But the subtext is a lot darker. If I don't handle it, everything will fall apart, and they believe it. And in that warped calculus, moral lines blur. Fixing a problem becomes more important than what the fix actually is. Donna Adelson's early career as a teacher wasn't just a job, it was a perfect fit for her era's social script, a structured environment, predictable outcomes, and authority over behavior. But when she transitioned into managing the family's cosmetic dentistry business, the scale of that control expanded. Now it wasn't just children, it was clients, image, money, staff, family reputation. In interviews and court filings, people around her described the Adelsons as a tight-knit but image-conscious family, a family that ran like a corporation. And Donna, she was the CEO of appearances. If you track that line forward, it leads exactly where you'd expect, to a woman who valued control so deeply that when chaos finally arrived, divorce, custody battles, a son on the verge of losing everything, she reached for the only tool she'd ever trusted: control by any means. Authoritarian upbringings create adults who thrive in systems until the system cracks. The human nervous system, trained for order, doesn't handle chaos well. And when chaos shows up in the form of betrayal, public humiliation, or the perception of losing a child, the psychological freefall can be catastrophic. Oh, and those kids, her children, they aren't their own people. Wendy, Charlie, the one who escaped to upstate New York, they're all extensions of Donna in Donna's mind. They are reflections of her. The inflection point in all this, where control can mutate into obsession, that's a big one. Where they drive to fix a problem overrides legality, morality, and empathy. Now, if someone else did it on the outside, oh my gosh, look how immoral and horrible they are. But when you're doing it yourself, you're too close to the fire, you don't see the heat. It's where the mother stops asking, how do I help, and starts thinking, how do I remove the threat? That's not love, that's legacy panic, a desperate reflex to preserve the family's image at all costs. And it's a reflex born in homes where love and control were indistinguishable. It's easy to individualize this story, to paint Donna Adelson as a single villain in the tragic family opera, but she's also a reflection of her generation. The women who grew up told to smile, achieve, and keep the family together, even when it killed them inside. And many grew up, realized they had agency, autonomy, and could make their own choices. Others clung to their 8-year-old belief systems. Donna clung. Donna superglued. Donna duct tape herself to that. Because it worked so well for so long. The women who built empires behind men's names, who held the finances, raised the children, curated the image, and when things fell apart, were blamed for not holding it together. In that light, Donna's need for control looks less like anything abnormal or an anomaly, and more like overcorrection. She didn't invent the system, she just took it to its logical extreme. The tragedy of control-based living is that it feels safe until it isn't. When your entire identity is wrapped in order, you lose the ability to process disorder. You don't adapt, you eliminate. And if you've done it so many times on such smaller scales, you see how that works. So you got to up it a little bit to possibly murder? Well, you've handled 1,000 mini versions of this. Why not this one big one, Donna? You can do it. And that's where control curdles into corruption. What begins as an "I'll fix this" turns into "I'll make sure it never happens again." It's the quiet slope from influence to interference, from management to manipulation. That's not unique to Donna Adelson. It's a pattern that plays out in boardrooms, marriages, politics, everywhere people confuse dominance with safety. Here's what's verifiable. Donna Adelson was a teacher, a wife, a mother, a business partner, born around 1950 in New York, educated at Queens College, living the Florida success story. Everything beyond that, her parents, her childhood dynamics, her formative emotional landscape, it remains largely undocumented. But her choices as an adult reveal the architecture underneath. The command of detail, the compulsion for order, the zero tolerance for imperfection. And when the pressure came, when the walls began to crack, that lifelong devotion to control did not save her. It destroyed her. Because control can't protect you from chaos. It just delays the moment it arrives. Maybe that's the lesson buried under the wreckage of the Adelson family saga. If you build your life around control, one day it will ask for everything, and you'll give it. Give me your thoughts in the comment section. On YouTube, if you're not already there, just search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski, and you will find us there. Do that same search wherever you're downloading podcasts as well, and take us with you. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of it. We give you tons of coverage every single day on all these different cases. Please don't miss it. Hit subscribe. You'll love it. We do appreciate that. Until next time, my name is Tony Brueski, and we will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.
board, who was ultimately, I think, dismissed from the civil case. So they're trying to get creative, and this is yet another bizarre wrinkle to the school shooting, pandemic that we have in our country, and yet another problem that we have to try to solve as part of this larger problem.
This seems like a simple one. Don't be a dumbass. I mean, if somebody is telling you there is a child, they have a gun, we think they have a gun, maybe they have a gun, we're not quite sure, there's something questionable that child has, but the school didn't act. And I also question this, and I'm not blaming the teachers who did what they were supposed to do. They had to go to the vice principal and say, okay, we think this. What on earth is going on in our country where if you're the teacher and you think the child has a gun, that you can't be the first one to go check out that bag? That somehow that child's rights supersede you going and saying, let me see your bag. This is where we live right now, where a teacher is in fear of repercussions towards them for acting in a manner that could protect not only that child, but all the other kids around and themselves, because there could be repercussions. Well, you might be violating their rights. You might be doing this. You might be doing this. This is insane. I mean, it's adults running around in fear of the rights of a 6-year-old who might have a fucking gun? I mean, what planet did this become normal on, and how the hell did we get here?
There is sometimes a departure between constitutional jurisprudence and common sense, because what we have here is, I think perhaps the concern by the teacher was that the child does have a Fourth Amendment right. It is less of a Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable searches and seizures than they would have outside of the school. They have less rights, but still some rights. And the school, if it's a public school, then they're state actors. And so they're kind of thinking to themselves, perhaps, hey, I don't want to violate this kid's Fourth Amendment rights and then be stuck with a lawsuit. But gosh, you got to weigh the potential evils here. And the other evil is that somebody gets shot in a school, which is happening with alarming frequency increasingly. So there is sort of a tension between, hey, we want to make sure we're protecting rights, but then again, what about this common sense piece? What about this emerging problem in society? Should the Constitution and its jurisprudence kind of catch up to that? I think is a question a lot of people are asking.
If we go into a concert, if you go into any sort of busy place, they will check your bag. I can't go, you're violating my Fourth Amendment rights. You can't check my bag. You just have to trust me that everything's going to be A-okay. Why on earth? How is this not applicable in a school setting?
So I think the distinction that the school would say exists is that, at a concert, you're talking about private entities, private individuals, and no one has a Fourth Amendment right against private individuals trying to search your shit, but you do have a right against public entities trying to search your stuff. So in the school context, the Fourth Amendment applies, whereas at a private concert with private entities, it doesn't. I'm not saying that that's how it should be. I'm saying that that's how the current jurisprudence is laid out. And even though those students have a diminished right in against searches and seizures, there are still some rights there. But should we be empowering teachers to be able to take direct action on a serious lethal threat that could be imminent? I mean, I think the answer is of course. And so we've got to sort of make some legal changes to authorize that.
Well, and one of the things that they said, and I did some research on this, the district said that being shot isn't a normal teaching risk. I would like to argue that because
it isn't.
344 shootings since Columbine, that pushes that into the level of it is a risk. It's something that we've been seeing. I'm not going to call it a trend, but I'm going to say that, well, it's more than one. So it's a possibility. Yep, you're saying there's a chance? You're damn right there's a chance.
No, Stacey, I'm totally with you because, and I think if you ask nearly any actual teacher, one of my best friends, Joey Cohen, is a teacher, and you better believe that that goes through his head
Damn right.
regularly. And so to say that this isn't sort of a normal work hazard of being a teacher, I think is detached from the reality of this, I will call it an emerging trend in school shootings that we're seeing.
Okay.
And yeah, like the last 24 said, maybe in the 80s it might have been different, but 2025, this is the reality.
Well, how did we go from we're going to be really vigilant, we're going to keep all the kids safe, to, well, you all have these rights and we don't want to hurt your feelings? Or, I mean, it's insane. After Columbine, I was a senior when Columbine happened. I know you're a few years younger than me, Eric, but you would have been in school too when that was going on. Yeah. So you lived through being in the education system for many of the years after that. I got the fuck out, thank God. But it was it was disturbing. But we didn't care. Nobody thought, well, my rights are being violated, they're going to check my backpack. But they started checking everybody's backpack. You walked in the building, it was like walking into an airport for a little while, where they're checking shit. And it was just the norm. Nobody was like, well, my rights are being violated. What the hell changed where this was just common sense, where, yeah, we're going to make sure that this stuff is being checked so nobody gets hurt. No harm, no foul. But we're now at a place where we can't even look in a first grader's backpack to make sure there's nothing dangerous in there. I mean, that basically says right now, my daughter going off to school, all these kids come in with their backpacks. Teachers have no right to look in them no matter what, even when they suspect there might be something there that's dangerous because it might violate their Fourth Amendment right.
You know, I hear you, Tony, for sure. And the way that I would sort of suggest is the Fourth Amendment protects against, it doesn't protect against all searches and seizures, just seizures that are unreasonable.
Right.
And my God, isn't it reasonable if you've received warnings that this kid might have a firearm and there's all these school shootings happening, to go in and search that kid's backpack? I think it's absolutely reasonable. And even if the school district has certain policies and procedures in place, there should be exceptions that allow them to deviate from those in the event of an emergent potential situation like this. So I don't think there would have been anything legally wrong with the teacher searching the bag. I understand they were trying to adhere to protocol, but sometimes you got to adhere to common sense.
Well, and this is a chance where this is a time where that actually failed. So if they were saying, well, we were trying to, preserve the child's rights, well, you fucked up. I'm just going to say that. And this teacher is probably sitting there going, well, you know what? I give up. So at some point, we've got to come into the middle that, you know what? Tommy, we think has a gun. We're going to pull him out, take him to the counselor's office, not make a scene, not embarrass him, but we're going to check out this perceived threat and see what's going on. We need to get back to this point where we're protecting other people. I'm sorry, I'm just on a rant. I'm getting mad. I'm getting really pissed.
Then we sit and we wonder, well, why is it hard to get teachers? Why do we have bad teachers?
We're not protecting them.
And there's plenty of wonderful teachers, but when you create an environment for healthy, intelligent adults that is going to be insanely risky, that is not going to work with them to help educate the children, it's going to work against them at every turn they take, you're going to end up with bottom of the barrel folks applying to be teachers. And
you're
the good ones
Tony, you're going to be safer working at a Starbucks drive-through taking latte orders than teaching our next generation of kids.
And making more money. Yeah.
Correct.
And that's the sad reality of our education system. Again, something we do nothing to fix in this country, a glaring red problem. And we're just like, well, those teachers. Like, no, that administration. Because 99% of these problems start with the administration operating out of fear of being sued. But maybe that's part of it too. I mean, and there are plenty of times to sue a school district. There certainly are. But but we also then get to the point where we're just solely operating on fear of lawsuits and not fear of children being killed.
Right.
And we're just not going to take the appropriate actions and hope that everything turns out good at the the end of the day. And that seems to be how this went in this case.
Yeah, totally. And to Gen Z 367's comment, being a teacher is so difficult at this point. They're constantly being scrutinized and ridiculed and condemned, and there are these parameters set on how they can even instruct their given discipline. And on top of that, think about is to teach anybody anything. I'm trying to teach my brother how to change something on my car, and he's an adult with a master's degree. That's hard as heck. Think about teaching a bunch of teenagers ancient history or something. And so they have a hard enough job as it is, and now they have to deal with a lethal threat to their lives and perhaps being handcuffed in their ability to respond to it. Big problem.
They are, and that's the insanity of it. It is such a broken system, and that's why it's getting harder and harder to find good teachers out there. And the good ones a lot of them have left. There's still several standing, but there's very few. I'm in my early 40s, and I can tell you, of all the people I knew from high school that went in, just like this woman did here, who went in and got shot. You go in rosy eyes, wanting to do the right thing. Thank God we have people who are willing to be teachers and put up with children and have the patience to put up with these children, and the horrible parents that are out there of these children and deal with those repercussions and still try to provide guidance. Thank God they exist. But at some point, there is a breaking point for every one of them. And I can say I'd probably 80 to 90% of the people I grew up with, again, I'm only in my early 40s, have left teaching because of shit like this, because the administrations are not using any sort of common sense, because it is so set up basically to operate out of fear and to not truly educate the kid and to make sure that they get certain scores in certain places so they get their funding. And I get it, you need your funding, but I mean there's so many things messed up. I could go on and on and on about how broken our system is, where, especially with funding, like, okay, well, you have the worst scores, let's give you the least funding. Maybe that should be a sign they need more funding because they need help, not less help. But that's how our system works. The schools that have the best scores, that end up having the best teachers because they have the best pay, end up getting tons of resources and tons of money. And the schools that are struggling, it's like, oh, you're down, let's keep kicking you. That's how the United States education system works. That's why we're in the problem we're in today. That's why we have the young adults that we have today. Poor decision makers, because this is the system they came up in, the system that fostered it. This is not a broken system. This is how the system is designed to work right now. It's our job to say, this is broken. We need to change it. It is currently working as designed. And that, I think, is something nobody wants to accept, because it takes some courage, it takes work, it takes effort, it takes energy to change something as difficult as this whole thing is.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, funding is a huge issue. I think sometimes even political overreach in education on both sides can be a problem. I think some of those ideologies can sort of try to be infused into curriculums and into resources that students have and may no longer have. It can result in the students being less accommodated, having a slanted view on certain issues. And sometimes when there is not enough support for these students, especially those dealing with issues due to funding, due to politics, due to whatever reason, that contributes as well to the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's an endless cycle, and it's like, okay, well, we fix this, but we got to fix. Look at our conversation. It's like, yeah, well, if we did this, you still got this over here, and this, and then it just becomes, and at the end of the day, what do you do? And then, and we're paying our teachers unbelievably low wages. I mean, shockingly low wages. I've seen some of the entry-level salaries just around here. We're talking like $19,000 on some positions.
Again, Starbucks working the drive-thru. I'm not dissing Starbucks drive-thru.
That's like you make more panhandling outside of Starbucks, probably.
Yeah.
Honest to God. And then we want you to, we want to entrust you with the well-being of our young people. And it's not to say that somebody, very well-intentioned, that money, I'll live in poverty because I believe in what I'm doing. Yeah, they will for so long. But then even, you've been there a long time when you get up around the scale and you're still not high. You're still not in many districts.
New people that are taking over the senior people's salary. It's repulsive.
Broken. It is so broken. It is so repulsive. And again, everyone is living in fear in every school district. Every person who has a job, they are living in fear of doing it wrong. And then they end up making the wrong choices because of that fear that they're living in. I experienced it just the other week where I got a call from my school saying, hey, we found this out. Your daughter reported this. And just to let you know, we let these other parents know what she found out. And that's it. Like, you're a mandatory reporter. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, I am. So what does that mean? Well, it means we have to report and you're calling the parents? Yes, we're just going to do that.
That's not reporting.
I'm sorry. Let's back up for a moment here. Mandatory reporter. What does that actually mean? What does it mean? And are you going to call? Well, we normally, yeah. So I blame and I don't blame people for those sort of decisions because there's a reason that there's a hesitancy to report certain things. Typically because something the administration said to them, because they don't want that bad mark on them. They don't want that bad PR. They don't want to be looked at as this. They don't want to be looked at as that. And that's how you get this fucking cycle that goes on forever. Look at the Devil's Den case. I mean, look at how they basically shuffle teachers around in so many districts like they do Catholic priests that molest kids. I mean, it's so freaking broken. It's insane. And it's an icky subject, so people don't like to talk about it either. But we did, and I'm glad we saved the world today. And,
I was going to say, did we fix anything?
No, but hopefully we opened up some people's eyes that didn't realize just how broken this shit show is. Eric Faddis, as always, thank you for coming on. Defense attorney, former prosecutor, Varner Faddis Law in Denver. Thank you so much for coming on, as always, Eric.
Great to be with you.
All right. Until next time, for Eric, Stacy, and Todd, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.